A family becomes the primary users of an advanced female bot, unaware of the dangers that come with her. Upon being awakened by his robot assistant Vasily, Georgie realizes that he's late, so he leaves the robot in charge of the morgue. He rushes to his car and gets a penalty from a drone for illegal parking even though he works there. Georgie heads to his ex-wife's apartment, where he hands Alla his signed permission to let their children have a month-long trip with her overseas. Before then, he gets to spend time with the kids, but his son Igor already went out. This disappoints Georgie, but Alla defends that she cannot control their teenage son. Because of this, he only leaves with their daughter Sonia. Shortly after, Alla's partner Leo thinks that Georgie should know they're moving to Australia permanently. Conflicted, Alla promises to tell him. Outside, Georgie calls Igor, who's apparently watching them nearby. However, Igor declines the call. Later, Kolyan and his friends corner Igor and scatter his paint cans on the ground. Kolyan demands his money, but Igor sprays his eyes with paint before running away. Afterward, Igor meets his friend Dimich, who's glad he's going overseas as he'll be away from Kolyan. At the same time, Georgie flies a kite with Sonia at the park. However, Sonia accidentally reveals that they're moving to Australia, surprising her father. Angry, Georgie rushes to their apartment without Sonia. Realizing that she's been caught, Alla explains that their children's lives would be better overseas, but Georgie disagrees. Leo intervenes, but Alla threatens to call the police, noting that Georgie has already signed the document permitting the children to leave with them. However, he points out that it was for a one-month trip, not a migration, so he dares her to call the police. Meanwhile, a package arrives at Kronos Corporation. While the executive Victor is interviewed about men using bots to cheat on their wives, he believes that having intimate robots provides psychological relief to single people, and if a couple's love is genuine, a bot can't replace it since it's an appliance. Afterward, Victor arrives at Kronos. While waiting for the elevator, he catches up with Galia, a pregnant employee. Once her boss leaves, she calls her fiancé, Sergey, to invite him for dinner, but he declines. Annoyed, Sergey tells his colleague Yuri that he plans to hide as he doesn't want her child. Suddenly, Victor orders them to bring the newly arrived package upstairs. With no cameras inside his office, Victor orders the head tech Igor to study the bot's documents, revealing that it's a prototype from a Chinese manufacturer. Opening the package, a female bot named Arissa greets them. The bot advises them to fully charge her before testing her features, so they connect her to the terminal in the office. After ordering Sergey and Yuri to wait outside, Victor admits that Arissa was from the black market since she's an advanced prototype who can imitate free will. While waiting for her to charge, they leave the office. With the bosses gone, Sergey sneaks inside, seeing an opportunity to get some action with a bot. Concerned, Yuri reminds him of Galia, but Sergey's unbothered. Inside, he touches Arissa, so she tells Sergey to log in as a user first. He complains that she's like a real woman, asking to log in before getting touched, so Arissa pushes him. Pissed, Sergey grabs her, but Arissa chokes him to death. When Yuri hears the commotion, he goes inside and finds Sergey dead while Arissa steals a coat. He orders her to stop while aiming his gun at her. Meanwhile, Igor reveals to Victor that Arissa has missing documents. They suddenly hear gunshots, so they rush to the office. Surprised, Victor interrogates Yuri, aiming the man's gun at him until Igor warns him about having two corpses in his office. Igor asks Yuri if he instructed Arissa to leave, but Yuri claims that Arissa killed Sergey before she left. They doubt this since bots are programmed not to kill. Stressed, Victor calls Gleb to find Arissa. Unbeknownst to them, Arissa walks into the warehouse, charging herself in a terminal. Gleb soon arrives at the office, inspecting Sergey's corpse and confirming that Yuri didn't kill him. Igor figures that since Arissa's battery is low, she'd look for a terminal to charge, so they shut down the power grid and deploy security to find her. Because of this, employees are dismissed early. While everyone leaves, Galia calls Sergey but to no avail. At the same time, Victor wants the truth to be buried, so they'll announce that Sergey died of natural causes and instruct Yuri to make a false statement. Outside, Sergey is transported in an emergency vehicle. Seeing a terminal inside, Arissa connects to charge herself, inevitably hitching a ride. Meanwhile, Galia asks Yuri about Sergey's whereabouts, but the nervous man blurts out that a bot attacked him. Realizing what he said, he leaves. Growing suspicious, Galia attempts to enter the warehouse, but she's unauthorized to do so. Irritated, she suspects they're hiding something, but even the security doesn't know what's happening. Outside, Gleb pays the mortuary personnel Vadim to put on the records that Sergey died of a heart attack. Happy to take the money, Vadim drives off, unaware that Arissa's in the vehicle with Sergey. Meanwhile, Georgie complains to his lawyer about his children's migration, but she advises him to return Sonia, as the court will deem this as kidnapping. Georgie argues that he may never see her again if he does since they're leaving tonight. The woman, however, points out that if he doesn't return her to Alla, he'll lose his parental rights. With no choice, Georgie picks up Sonia from his office. While getting in the car, Georgie notices a corpse arriving in the morgue, so he tells Sonia to wait for him. Inside, Vadim instructs Georgie to write a medical report for Sergey, but Georgie orders Vasily to take care of it while he settles things. Meanwhile, Sonia approaches Arissa from the vehicle. call. Curious, she taps the bot, so Arissa turns, surprising Sonia. The girl introduces herself, then Arissa reaches for her hand, authorizing Sonia as a first-level user. When Arissa pulls her up, she discovers Sonia's wound, so she tells her to wait as she prepares to clean it. Shortly after, Georgie heads outside, where Sonia shares that she met Arissa. However, she carries her to the car as they have to hurry. Seeing them drive away, Arissa heads to Georgie's office, where she sees their family pictures. Georgie and Sonia soon arrive at the apartment, and Alla returns the permission document to her ex. Georgie stresses that their children need him, but Alla just leaves. Afterward, Igor arrives home, where Alla reveals that their trip is cancelled since Georgie took back his permission. This angers her son. In the morgue, Vasily shares with Georgie that his findings on Sergei's corpse don't match the preliminary conclusion. Intrigued, Georgie examines the corpse and discovers Sergei's spinal injury. He then calls Vadim to clarify it, but the man insists that everything's in the report. Unconvinced, Georgie warns that he'll call the police if he doesn't take the body. Moments later, Igor arrives at Georgie's office and begs to permit him to go overseas. However, Georgie refuses, thinking that they'll never be a family anymore if they leave. Still, Igor stresses that his father shouldn't ruin his life just because his life was a mess. Upon hearing this, Georgie asks his son to think it over for a month. If Igor doesn't change his mind, Georgie will buy him the plane ticket. Pissed, Igor leaves. Shortly after, Georgie calls his lawyer to file a lawsuit for child custody modification. Meanwhile, Alla's lawyer Marina tells her that she should have consulted her before acting against Georgie. During this, Leo tells Alla that his work in Australia can't be delayed, so he'll be going alone. While Leo packs up, Marina thinks of a plan to remove Georgie's parental rights so they can live in Australia. In the morgue, Vadim claims he didn't tell Georgie the issue with Sergei, so he'd sleep better at night. Now that the man suspects something, Vadim tries to appease the doctor, but Georgie demands 300,000 rubles to help with the cover-up. This cuts Vadim's payout from Gleb significantly, but he has no choice. Moments later, Georgie calls his lawyer, ready to pay. However, Alla calls him, asking him to look after the children while she and Leo head overseas. This surprises Georgie. Soon, Georgie arrives at the apartment to stay with the children. He thanks Alla for her trust just as their son storms in without acknowledging him. With this, Georgie also promises to settle things with Igor. Later, Igor shows Arissa's missing files to Victor, where she's seen killing the workers in a laboratory. He sarcastically congratulates Victor for bringing the only killer bot to Russia. At night, Sonia wakes up and finds Arissa on her balcony, glad that she found her. Meanwhile, a vigilante stalks a man with a bot girlfriend while following instructions from his leader. Criticizing the man for preferring bots over real women, he sprays the robot's eyes with paint. As he aims to damage the bot, the man rushes forward and gets himself stabbed. The next day, Georgie discovers that Igor won't go to school, so he offers to speak with the principal to explain his reason for staying in Russia. Igor laughs since the principal doesn't even know Georgie. Tired of his behavior, Georgie orders his son to go to school. In the cybercrime department, Galia reports that a bot attacked Sergei, but the officer speculates that he must have done something malicious. Still, they help her track Sergei's phone, discovering that he's in the morgue. This shocks Galia, and while the officer calms her down, Detective Varlamov notices her. Soon, Varlamov calls Georgie, requesting to examine Sergei's body. In her room, Sonia dresses Arissa, who she kept inside her closet. When her father calls her, the girl orders Arissa to hide. Georgie asks Sonia to go to the office with him, but she refuses, assuring him that she's fine being left alone. Outside, Igor surprises Dimich, admitting that Georgie ruined the trip, so now he'll suffer at Kolyan's hands. To hide him, Dimich invites him to his father's apartment, where they find his bot Sensi. Dimich wants Igor not to use Sensi as his father will get mad before he leaves for school. Shortly after, Sensi touches Igor, making him uneasy, so he orders her to sit quietly. He then sits away from her, feeling tempted. At the office, Igor discovers that Arissa has 2 GPS modules, but he can't make them respond. This stresses out Victor, as his father-in-law will get mad if he finds out Arissa's missing. At home, Arissa shows Sonia her ability to mimic voices. Suddenly, Marina visits to check on the children, but wonders where Georgie is. Arissa, who's hiding in the bathroom, mimics his voice, convincing Marina that Sonia's father is there. After she leaves, Sonia praises Arissa for saving her. She explains that they'll move to Australia and gets emotional at the thought of her separated parents. Seeing her cry, Arissa hugs her. Meanwhile, Varlamov meets Georgie to examine Sergei's corpse. However, he doesn't have a court order to proceed, so Georgie declines. After he leaves, Georgie meets with Vadim, warning him that Varlamov is investigating Sergei's case. With Georgie wanting to confess, Vadim panics and warns that Kronos will kill them. At the same time, Galia speaks with Victor, lamenting about her pregnancy, mortgage, and dead fiancé. To appease her, Victor offers to pay her mortgage and promises that she'll return to her job after her maternity leave. Because of this, Galia calls Varlamov to announce that she's no longer giving her statement. Upon learning this, Varlamov asks his superior for a court order to examine Sergei's corpse. However, his superior reminds him that he's in cybercrimes, so he needs to work on the stabbing case as the suspect is likely part of the liquidator, a group of anti-bot vigilantes. With no choice, Varlamov agrees. Afterward, the detectives watch the footage retrieved from the victim's bot. Cross-referencing it to other security footage, they discover that the suspect is an 18-year-old named Believ. In the street, Kolyan's group corners Dimich, asking him about Igor. Afraid, he quickly admits that Igor's still in the country. In the room, Igor receives Dimich's message, saying that his father is heading there. He quickly fixes up and rushes outside but sees Kolyan and his friends. To escape, he hops on walls until he finds an opportunity to hide around a corner, letting them pass him. Relieved, he walks away but bumps into a girl, spilling her cola. Annoyed, the girl demands him to pay her for the drink. Seeing his shirt wet, she tosses him her spare shirt, telling him to bring it back with her cola at a club called Botnet. She then introduces herself as Jana, so he agrees, smiling as he leaves. In Victor's office, Igor has finally tracked down Arissa, so Victor praises him and instructs him to send security. In the playground, Sonia and Arissa play hide-and-seek, but Arissa stops when she senses that she's being tracked. Quickly, she removes her tracker and tosses it inside a truck. Soon, Igor arrives home when he suddenly hears a growling animal. Curious, he follows the sound to the kitchen and finds a growling Arissa. Scared, Igor immediately grabs Sonia away, but his sister introduces the bot to him, revealing that she's the main user. Sonia offers to let him be a user, so Arissa logs him in as a second-level user. Sonia admits that Georgie doesn't know about Arissa yet, so they make a deal not to tell their father about her as long as Sonia doesn't snitch on Igor coming home early from school. As Georgie waits to meet Varlamov at his department, he overhears an interview with a liquidator, claiming that last night's attack was their initiation. They cut the bot's memory, and the paint is a message that humanizing the bots is misleading. Georgie then goes outside for a smoke when Gleb approaches him. He introduces himself and laments that Georgie didn't follow Vadim's advice. However, Georgie refuses to cover for them anymore, convinced that they killed Sergei. Still, Gleb mentions that they're not afraid to kill, though he claims that he won't do that to someone who has children. Threatened, Georgie stands up, so Gleb grabs him to make him kneel back, telling him that this is his last warning. At the same time, Chronos security stops the truck but doesn't find Arissa. Meanwhile, Georgie immediately rushes to the apartment and is relieved to find his daughter okay. When asked where Igor is, Sonia doesn't know. Outside, Dimich runs into Igor, who's headed to Botnet. Dimich says he'll follow suit after he changes clothes. That night, Georgie and Sonia bond when Alla calls. She's alarmed that Georgie texted her, asking about Igor's friends. Alla assumes that Igor ran away after they argued, but Georgie denies this. He reveals that their son is out, and when Alla questions him, Georgie reminds her that she also couldn't control him. Pissed, Alla ends the call. Apparently, Alla's staying at Marina's house. Marina scolds her for almost getting caught, as it's supposed to be nighttime in Australia. Yet it's bright in her apartment. She reminds Alla that she left her children with Georgie so that he'll screw up, giving her leverage to remove his parental rights. However, if he finds out she's lying, he can use it against her. At the cybercrime department, Varlamov has Believ in custody but promises to help him if he gives them information. Unconvinced, Believ berates Varlamov for turning a blind eye to bots taking over people's jobs. He warns him that the situation will worsen as the liquidators have just begun. Outside, Igor tries to get into the club but is asked to pay. When he asks for Jana, the bouncer calls her, letting Igor return her shirt. With her invitation, Igor is finally allowed inside, but Jana leaves him at the bar with her brother Bars, the bartender. Meanwhile, Georgie tries to locate Igor's phone, but since his son's number isn't registered to him, he's denied access. At the department, Varlamov's colleagues celebrate arresting Believ, but he points out that they haven't caught the liquidators, who are the masterminds. Suddenly, a colleague informs him that they have Sergei's parents' address. At the bar, Kolyan's group suddenly appears, holding Dimich captive. Having had enough, Igor wants to settle things head-on. In the bathroom, Kolyan and his friends gang up against Igor, who tries to fight back. Suddenly, Bars arrives, noting that the fight isn't fair. He easily knocks down the bullies, forcing them to leave. Seeing Igor bleeding, Dimich apologizes for what he's done, but his friend merely tells him to go home, knowing that he was just scared. Bars then invites Igor to Botnet, located on the rooftop where Jana is. She offers to clean his wound, and as she does, the two get close, smiling as they look into each other's eyes. At the department, Varlamov speaks to Sergei's mother, Antonina. However, the mother notes that Chronos has extended their help, offering her money. Because of this, she's hesitant about opening a case, noting that it won't bring Sergei back. Hearing this, Varlamov reminds her that what they did was a crime, and her son would have wanted her to seek justice. Convinced, Antonina signs the papers to allow him to release Sergei's corpse. Soon, Igor arrives home late. Georgie corners him, noticing his wound and thinking that he was drinking. But Igor insists that he doesn't answer to him. Georgie asks why he's acting rebellious, but Igor doesn't care since he's out of their lives soon. Suddenly, an injured Kolyan and his father arrive. wife, with the latter accusing Igor of beating his son and being a bandit. He attempts to grab the kid, so Georgie punches him and twists his arm. After being released, the two rush away. When asked about the bandit accusation, Igor says it's nothing. He explains that Kolyan and his friends cornered him, so a friend's brother helped him. Understanding this, Georgie assures him that he's not responsible for what happened. Soon, Georgie receives a message from the cybercrime department requesting Sergei's body be released. Afraid that Kronos will harm his family over this, he stages a break-in in the morgue, imitating the liquidator's initiation. He even sprays Vasily's eyes and burns him. Meanwhile, Victor plots to present a substitute for Arissa to his father-in-law, afraid that he'd be thrown out of the company if he fails him. Later, while Georgie's sleeping, Arissa touches his hand, authorizing him as the primary user and completing their family.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.